Hello and welcome to this video series on smart licensing for firepower devices. This series of 8 videos will hopefully guide you through the topic of smart licensing and how it applies to both firepower threat defense and ASA firewalls. The whole series covers the following topics: a general overview of smart licensing for both firepower threat defense and ASA, and finally, smart licensing for firepower in public cloud environments. You can either watch all of the videos in order to get a full overview, or simply watch the videos that are of most interest. In this video, I'll be covering licensing ASA on firepower hardware, and this is part 2 of the ASA series, where we'll be talking about failover and clustering considerations. When it comes to failover licensing, for failover licensing, the smart licensing is configured on the active unit. For active-active failover, you can only configure smart licensing on the unit with failover group 1 as active. The configuration is then replicated to the standby unit, but here it remains in a cached state. Only the active unit requests the licenses from the smart license authority. The licenses are aggregated into a single failover license, and that is shared by the failover pair. And this aggregated license is also cached on the standby unit to be used if it becomes active in the future. We take a quick look at failover licensing for the different firepower appliances. So failover licensing for the Firepower 2100 series. You have 3 license types. You have the standard license, where the active unit requests the license. The standby has the license by default, but doesn't need to register with the smart licensing server to use it. For contexts, again, the active unit requests the license, and the standard license includes 2 contexts by default, and that is automatically present on both units within the failover pair. These standard context licenses are combined with the context license that has been purchased on the active unit up to the maximum platform limit. And for strong encryption, well, this will be automatically enabled for qualified customers. For the 4100 and 9300 series, again, we have the standard license, the context license, and then the optional feature licenses for things like carrier. So again, standard licenses, the active unit requests the license, and the standby unit has it by default, but doesn't need to register with the smart licensing server. Again, the same for context. Each unit, or the active unit again, requests the license for context, but the standard license that includes 2 contexts by default and is present on all of the units. And then these are combined with the context that has been purchased right up to the platform limit. For carrier licenses, only the active unit requests this license, and again, both units can use it due to the license aggregation that takes place when this is set up. And again, like the 2100 series for strong encryption, any customers that are qualified to use strong encryption, that will automatically be enabled. We've put a table in here for context entitlements. So this again depends on what type of HA pair you have, for example. So this gives you an idea. So for example, I'll go through the top one, and then you can go through the rest at your own leisure. For the Firepower 2130, each unit includes 2 standard contexts, or within the standard licensing, you get 2 contexts included as standard. So that gives us a total of 4. And then we purchase a 30 context license, which gives us an aggregated total of 34. So you can see there the platform limit for one unit is 30. So combining these licenses allows a maximum of 30 contexts, but in this case, that we need to configure the active context license to be 25. So what happens after a failover? First off, the new active unit continues to use the aggregated license that it received previously. It uses cached license to re-request entitlements. The previous active unit was likely to rejoin the pair then as a standby, and at this point we'll release the entitlement. There's possibly a non-compliant state here, but we do give a 30-day grace period to cover this. But then the new active unit will send the entitlement renewal request every 35 seconds. So providing you do have connection up to the smart licensing portal or to your satellite server, then those licenses should be realigned. Excuse me. If still non-compliant after the grace period, you will not be able to make any configuration changes to features requiring a special license, but otherwise operation is unaffected. When it comes to cluster licensing, again, each chassis must be registered with the Smart License Authority. There are no extra costs for slave units, but each ASA must have the same encryption license. So again, the master in the cluster will communicate with the smart portal. It will transfer the configuration to each of the slave units within the cluster. And then those licenses are aggregated into a shared single cluster license. Again, we have cluster licensing types for the 419300 series. So again, the standard license, where the master unit requests the license. Similar to the failover in the HA, where the slave units will have the license by default, but the slave units do not need to register with the licensing server to use them. From a context point of view, again, the master unit requests the license, and the standard license in these chassis includes 10 contexts by default and is present on all of the units. And these are combined with the context license that has been purchased and applied on the master unit up to the platform's limit. For the carrier license, which is required for things like distributed site-to-site VPN, the license is a per unit entitlement, and each unit requests its own license from the server. So this license configuration is then replicated to all of the slave units. And again, for strong encryption customers or those that are qualified for it, that would be automatically enabled. Again, for reference, we've put a note on contexts onto for cluster licensing, or for context within cluster licensing. So take a look at that at your own time. And when it comes to with cluster licensing, what happens when the master changes? Again, what we have here is a new master unit will continue to use the aggregated licenses. So remember, the licenses are aggregated across the whole cluster. It will use the cache license to re-request entitlements. The previous master, after it rejoins the cluster as a slave, will then release its entitlements. Again, we may enter a possible non-compliant state, but we do give that 30-day grace period. And at this point, the new master unit will send a new entitlement request or an entitlement renewal request every 12 hours. So again, if you're still non-compliant after the 30-day grace period, you will not be able to make any configuration changes to any features requiring special licenses. Otherwise, the operation is unaffected. But we do recommend that you should refrain from making any configuration changes until the license requests have been completely processed. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you found it useful, and please take some time to view the other videos in this series, as well as the other content we have to offer. Bye for now.